You called me? I just
You're
woke up.
sleeping. I know I woke you up. I know I did. I was like, I know this man is not ready right now.
I mean, I already was ready in my mind what I was going to say. So I was
Oh,
like,
no
you know
doubt.
what? I'm good. Let me just
I
take this
know.
quick nap. My wife just made a bomb ass dinner. So shout out to my wife, Carly.
Oh yeah, you get a full belly.
And shout out to your girl for that awesome painting she did with for Off the Dome Sports.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. Hon, you bring that here. Bring that painting here.
Refresh me on what her name is again.
Shannon.
Shannon.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Shannon, for all the support you do for me and Nick and I. Yeah. Yeah.
See if
That's
we
what I'm
can get
talking
that
about.
right here. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to. There you
There it is.
go.
Hey,
Yep.
that's a sick photo. It looks like you're like on the dome
Right. No doubt.
for sure. Man, we got a awesome show for you guys. Jerry with the cash money.
Always, always. Listen,
Man,
if
we got Randy, the news
Randy's back,
breaker.
Randy, the news dropper, the bomb dropper, man. Hey, listen, Cash Money. If there's shout out to Carly and Shannon, no doubt. If there's one thing that we're gonna do always on this show, the music is gonna be right, like at all times. Like I know we've kind of done Juvenile the past couple weeks, and that'll be changing, as the show goes on. But the music is always gonna be New Orleans centric, like at all times. Don't even worry about that. Always.
Well, I mean, I feel like we would be doing a disservice if we
Disservice.
weren't.
Any
Like,
other way? I mean, what other way are you gonna do it, man? You know what I
what
mean?
kind of podcast would this
Would
be
we
about
be?
the Saints?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
If we can't play back that ass up, I mean, what? I mean, like, I don't know if you've seen that viral video about 10 years ago where he said, if you can't go to Bella Noche, then where the hell are you going to go? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was hilarious. Anyways, let's get into it, Nick. The last time we talked, we sat down with Bob, talk about some possibilities
Yep.
that might occur. And we all said, we're going to hit that second, third wave of free agency, which is exactly what we did. You know, Derek Carr restructures, like we exactly said he did.
Yep.
Tyrann Mathieu takes a pay cut. Cam Jordan takes a pay cut. You trade for the Louisiana, our first Louisiana boy we go for is Davon Gaja. Look, I know I'm from Louisiana, but I can't even pronounce that last name.
Ron Godchow.
Yeah, I mean, correct
Let,
me
let,
if
let, the, let, the,
wrong.
let the Pennsylvania native show you how it's done.
The dude from Plaquemine, and we start with that, and then we go Chase Young, re-signing Chase Young. We go to Jawan Johnson. Then the big one that we didn't expect, Justin Reed. Huge.
Man, I freaked out when it happened. I was going. I couldn't believe it. We don't get guys like this. Justin Reed, man, from LSU, like just the Saints don't get guys to sign with them like this. You know what I mean? That's regardless of what the Saints are with salary cap, in years past, and it might before everything was kick the can down the road mode, right? We never really got guys of this caliber to sign with us. This is a top 5 guy at his position. Like this is different, right?
For sure. Got Justin Reed. Obviously, he respects the hell out of Tyrann Mathieu because he started his career with Tyrann Mathieu in Houston, then, went to Kansas City. Tyrann was there too. And this is to be the third team that he gets to play with Mathieu. And, shout out to Tyrann Mathieu, dude, for recruiting, bringing back all the Louisiana boys. I think we got 8 Louisiana boys on the roster now. Let's keep it going. What's stopping us? You know what I'm saying? So, like, man,
that's the way it should be. Louisiana is a high school football powerhouse, and then obviously you talk about LSU is one of the best, programs in the nation. So it's as well as should be.
Absolutely. And we just spent 2 decades of Sean Payton just absolutely declining every LSU player there ever was, besides Will Clapp and maybe
we're talking before the
Al
show. I was
Woods.
like, the only name I could think of was Will Clapp, a backup center. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, you back in the day in 2006, you had Skylar Green, but obviously it all started there. I think Sean Payton realized the impact that LSU has on the sports community in Louisiana, and Skylar Green kind of started that, and he noticed the media attention Skylar Green, an undrafted rookie, was getting, and I think from there he didn't want to deal with LSU guys and the attention they brought. And but you know what? I'm glad that we're able to move on from Sean Payton and actually do what the fans want. Honestly, we started year one, and with Dennis Allen, we go out and I think we had Jarvis Landry and Matthew, and they started with that. Foster Moreau was next, and the rest is history. But let's get into Derek Carr restructuring, and then how does it compare to Cam Jordan taking a pay cut and Tyrann Mathieu taking a pay cut? Because there's a lot of controversial, talk around that Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu are doing what it takes to have this team succeed and to win because they took, a quote unquote pay cut, which is phenomenal, great. But Derek Carr does it, and apparently that looks bad on Derek Carr. So
when Derek Carr is the best, when Derek Carr is the best of the three players just mentioned, so like that's the funniest part about it. That's the most hilarious. But you can't make that shit up. The best player of the three takes one, and the world's ending. My God, we can't get rid of him. Another year of Derek Carr, and then you have a still good but declining Tyrann Mathieu. And obviously, we know just how bad or unproductive Cam Jordan's been this late in his career. So you can't make that up with Saints fans.
Well, I can be completely honest with you. Like, what team is going to go out and sign if Matthew and Cam Jordan and we decided to part ways with them this offseason? What teams are going to sign them to be a major contributor to their team? Like at this point, they would just be a Champ Bailey. They would just be a Champ Bailey for another team, like Champ Bailey was for us for a preseason. You know what I'm saying?
That would be Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan's at that point. Now, do I think he could find a home in a 3-4 scheme? Yes, because he's always been a better run defender than a natural pass rusher, right? I mean, obviously a great pass rusher. The sack numbers are there to prove such, but elite against the run. Just maybe the best run defending end in the league across his career. But for what he's been in the scheme that he's played in up until now, yeah, Cam Jordan really is just kind of at that Champ Bailey to the Saints mode where, kind of a cut in preseason doesn't make the active roster. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, the chime back on that 3-4 comment, I believe he started as a 3-4 defensive player. I think we drafted him when we had Big Blob Ryan, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's kind of his build, right? Like now he's lost some weight later in his career to try and make him more effective in the position that he was playing in. But it's almost like it almost kind of backfired because he should have just like that pass rushing element of his game was so far gone that he should have just maybe kept the weight on. But when he was, you remember, he was like a 285 pound defensive end. Like that's what you want in the 3-4. You know what I'm saying? You want heavier guys like that. You don't want a 245, 250, maybe even 260. You don't want those 260 is still heavy, but you don't want those lighter defensive ends in that 3-4 scheme. So, I mean, if Cam Jordan can find and really just be schemed and utilized as the run defender that he's been his entire career, then maybe he can be useful in this defense. I'm not going to say awesome or excellent, but maybe he can be not worthy of a cut, even though they can't do that with the way his contract's restructured. But
Ryan says no, he was
here before Bob Ryan, right? He came in 2011. Rob Ryan came in 2013. But
Well, I think he still started with a 3-4 because I think was it Steve Spagnuolo or was it
Sure.
still Greg Williams?
So 2012 was the only year of Spags, and that was like the
1 year.
all-time worst NFL defense in 2012.
And look at him now.
Right. Now he's been in, maybe not this year, right? The Super Bowl was a bad example, but right, Spags has had a lot of success outside of the Saints. So
for sure. But the covered the pay cuts, and for them to stay, I think most importantly, they're going to be the leaders of this team as far as a voice, and that's going to be huge for this foundation that Kellen Moore wants to set moving forward in his new head coach and tenure with the Saints as a 36-year-old head coach. It's going to be huge to have guys like Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, to get people to buy in, get the players to buy in for what Kellen Moore has in mind or has envisioned for this team. And, doesn't mean they can't be effective. Like you just said, Cam Jordan, he can work on setting back the edge like he used to do in the past, instead of worrying about rushing the passer or setting up them rushing lanes for edge rushers, and that's why you trade it for a guy like Gaja, and one of the best run stuffing nose tackles in the league.
Maybe the
best.
Yep.
And that was huge.
That's so. Can we just talk about that trade for a second? The Saints gave up a 7th round draft pick, not even this year, but next year in 2026. So we're talking about you don't have to worry about it this year, but a 7th round pick is a guy that, I don't know, practice squad player, maybe a special teamer. That guy is not contributing, but we get a bona fide starter for 2 years, right, at nose tackle. Like, that's a Mickey Loomis. Like, well,
good job. Hey, 7th round pick. Yeah.
If we're gonna sit here, listen, all right. If we're gonna sit here and crush him for the Derek Carr bullshit, which again I don't think is warranted, then we're also gonna fucking sit here and give him his flowers when he makes a move like this. Because to get a starter like that, to not have to worry about this in the draft now, because as well as some other depth pieces in Shepard that they retain and whatnot. When you get a bona fide starter for a 7th round pick a year from now, take that all day. That deserves its recognition.
And Ryan with the comment, Sean, I know I ragged on you for the Isaiah Foskey comment, but I think him. Oh yeah, well, I was trying to tell you that, Ryan. Like, you got Cam Jordan giving you sprinkles of hints that Isaiah Foskey, Christian Boyd is going to probably be a contributor to this defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you put Christian Boyd and Devon Gaja together, rotating at that nose tackle. Hell, you can even put them on, one on the edge on the line, not edge rusher, but what I'm talking about, defensive end, and be maximum run defending. I mean, I think that we're still going to have to draft a guy on the D line, get another young guy in, but talk about a great position for somebody we can draft to learn from a Cam Jordan, to learn from a Gaja, to learn from a Christian Boyd who's still young, but has experienced 3 or 4 years as a, practice squad, working his way up to finally a contributor to the defense. Like, there's some steps that we are taking that is going underrated, under the radar. And it's not all doom and gloom for the Saints right now. Like, good coaching can still make you competitive in the NFC South. A lot of people don't understand.
In the NFL at large, but especially in the NFC South. No question. I mean, no question.
And I had this talk earlier. Atlanta ain't going to do shit. Yeah, they got all this talent, but they never put it together. They never put it together.
I'm not listening to anyone that's bringing up the Atlanta Falcons.
No. In fact, I'll be willing to bet, because I said this last year, and of course Carolina started to take some steam towards the end of the year. But I said this last year. I feel like Carolina's going to be better than Atlanta. They might be better than us, but like
whoa.
I'm telling you,
I ain't co-signing that one. Now, if you want to say Atlanta, I'll entertain it. But they ain't gonna be better than us. They ain't gonna be better than us, bro. Slow down.
Look, Nick, if I have to, because I live in Charlotte. If I have to go to another Saints game here in Charlotte and they play a game like they did this past year,
I was gonna fly that, man. I was gonna fly that. So I went to New Orleans. So for those who don't know, I was in New Orleans week 1 for the season opener, but also the home opener. Where they pounded the Panthers 47-10. And I was talking about flying down. Since you had moved to Charlotte, I was talking about flying down and staying with you for that week. I'm not sure when it was, but middle of the season. But boy, am I glad I didn't.
No, dude. I'm talking about had control of the game the entire time, and they were just pussyfooting. But it was horrible. Yeah. It was like, what the hell am I watching? It was funny because it was hilarious because I was sitting by a lot of Panthers fans, but the funny part is all of them fans were a fan of a different team. And like they had a Eagles jersey under their Panthers jersey. One guy had a 49ers jersey on, and I'm like, damn, this is what the Saints could look like if they have losing seasons.
Sean, I'm so glad you bring that up. We didn't talk about this pre-show, but goddamn, am I glad you brought that up. This is what tanking, and whether it's inadvertently or purposeful, even though I don't believe tanking is a thing. It's hard to convince a roster full of 53 guys trying to play for their next contract or they're going to put shit on film to tank, right? But this is what really, as far as the front office goes and management, this is what purposefully being bad for multiple years in a row can look like. Your fans wear different teams' jerseys underneath, the home team jersey, or we go back to, God forbid, paper bag days. Like trust. Like I'd rather be 5-12 and have it be because of being absolutely depleted by injuries like we have been the last 3 or 4 years. Because let's call it what it is. Like that's really what it's been. This has still been a good roster. This has been a good enough roster to win the NFC South. I think that's pretty objective to say. Now they haven't done that. That's because by the end of it, you have veteran players that just aren't able to stay healthy. But if you stay bad for long enough, man, whether it be 3-4 years, even with a fan base as diehard and loyal as the New Orleans Saints have, right, locally or otherwise, with you and I living outside of Louisiana, it can turn dark real quick, man. It can turn dark real quick. So there's a lot to be said for winning 7, 8, 9, maybe a 10th game. That's not the worst place to be in. I mean, we just got to be realistic about it. Like, trust me, you don't want to go into season knowing like, God damn, we'd be lucky to win that 3rd game. You don't want to ever say that, man. That's not a great place to be. Like you said in shows past, we're talking about like Jacksonville Jaguar territory, like Tennessee Titan territory, where you've picked in the top 10 for 7, 8 years in a row.
2009, bro. And they had 2 first overall picks.
Like 15 years. Like, that's a long ass time, man. That's a long fucking time. You know what
Only
I mean?
2 playoff appearances to show for it.
Come on, man.
Look,
you don't want to be that team, trust me.
You can even go to a most recent tank with the New England Patriots. They're on year 4 or 5 now.
Just bad. Like you can make a case they're I wouldn't say they are, but especially now that they seem to maybe righted the ship with a couple hires like the Saints did. But I'd at least listen to a case where someone would say that's the worst team in the league right now. You don't want to be that, man. You really don't.
Ryan says Saints will get a 7th round comp pick for MVS. I think we also get a comp pick for Paulson Adebo as well. I think it's like a 4th round, 3rd round, whatever.
Cool.
Huge. Cool.
Love that.
Which is next year. It won't be this year, but still, we'll take it.
I'll take all day.
Ka-ching. You know what I'm saying? Ryan says Tampa and Carolina are going to be on the top of the NFC South if Carr gets hurt.
Yes, if right, and we've said, and Ryan, we've said this in the past couple episodes. Yes, if Derek Carr gets hurt, you can just I don't know where the white flag is, but this is white. I'll start waving it. Like you can just wave that white flag. The season's over at that point. Like if we got to start, exactly, play the sad music. If we have to start Spencer Rattler for any significant period of time, yeah, the season's over. Cool. Well, then we'll just plan our top 10 pick party every Sunday going forward from there. So absolutely, I agree. If Carr gets hurt again, you can pretty much give up on the season. And Carolina at that point, maybe better than the Saints, and maybe Atlanta too. If Carr gets hurt, you can say, yeah, the Saints might be the worst team in the division because it's the most important position on the football field. And I tell you what, man, the drop off, and again, Saints fans you're going to be like, no. Rattler has juice. Rattler has stealing. Rattler has potential.
Aurora.
Well, I'm talking about the drop off from Derek Carr to Spencer Rattler is a fucking gorge. Is the Grand Canyon, bro. It's a fucking drop off. All right. Like it's one of the biggest drops in the league. All right. And Derek Carr, I'm not even saying Derek Carr's a top 10 quarterback. I think he's right outside. But it's a big drop. Spencer Rattler, I swear I promise you he's not it. He ain't it.
Jerry says, who is this Felix Jones Jr.?
I think we'll get to him at the end here. I have him at the bottom of the list because that's our most recent transaction. But that's not a player that you're going to need to know anything about. He's not going to make the roster over guys like who I also have on this list. The Saints re-signed Dante Pettis. And Pettis is the punt returner, a guy who can play special teams. He ain't going to make the team over a guy like a Dante Pettis or a Bub Means or a and any of the guys that should be lower on the depth chart than that.
I feel indifferent about Dante Pettis. I think he has the opportunity to beat out Dante Pettis because I watched Felix Jones. I watched Felix Jones with Chicago last year in last year's preseason, and they had him at running back, right? Nick? And he was actually low-key pretty fucking solid at running back in preseason. Go back to last year's preseason for Chicago and watch him at running back, and he was actually pretty solid. He kind of reminded me of Tavares Cadet, which I messaged, by the way, trying to get on the show. No answer. But,
love that.
But, maybe he could be that small little gadget running back. Who knows? I do feel like he has a chance to make the roster over Dante Pettis. Now, not Bub Means, because we invested in Bub Means.
We invested in Bub Means. And you're not wrong. Will he have the opportunity in training camp to prove himself? For sure. But what I say, there's like a 90% chance just right now, but even before anything goes on film, that he ain't going to be on this team. I would say I think that's fair. Right. Going to be cut second week of the preseason. Right. He ain't going to, I don't think he makes it till like final cut day. Like it's just a guy that you see some upside in, but
bring in some competition,
competition. He's a camp body and we'll see where it plays out, but I wouldn't get you don't need to do Felix Jones deep dives. That is
right. I believe he was a second and third round pick, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 years ago.
That has some pedigree with it. Like, okay, look,
out of Tennessee.
Chase Young's made a lot of money off of pedigree, right? Certainly not production, right? In final
great segue.
And thank you for it was a great segue. You're welcome.
Because I was about to get into that.
That's what you have me here for, Sean. But yeah, it's you have the first round pedigree, like top overall draft pick of a Chase Young, and he kind of is, cruising along the NFL based on name recognition. Now, this was his statistically best season as a pro in terms of like pressure rate and total pressures and just living in the backfield. This was the best Chase Young that we've seen of his career, I'd say. The sack numbers were slightly higher his rookie year. He only had 5.5 this year. I think he had 7.5 his rookie year, and that was his highest. So you can't really say that he earned the 3 years for 51 based on those sack numbers, but I want to stress to everyone, as someone who played defensive end a lot of his life in football, it's not all about the final sack numbers. It's not all about bringing the quarterback down. You pressure the quarterback, you bat down passes, you affect cuts in the backfield from a running back. Like if your presence is back there, a lot of times you've already made an impact on the play. And I was very pleased with Chase Young this year. You know, did they overpay for him? I don't want to say they overpaid for Chase Young, but you definitely paid on his potential ceiling that you believe has yet to be reached because of his age only being 25. He'll be 26 this season. You know, and where he was drafted and the physical specimen that he is and that got him drafted where he was. So
two things on Chase Young, and hear me out here. Two things. Number one, Chase Young wants to be here. And that's the most important thing, you know.
He could have got that. He would have got that from another team. So for us to get him at that, because look, if he gets to be if he gets to be a 10, 11, 12 sack guy, all of a sudden we have him at
that's a huge dub.
A nice little deal. If he's a 13, 14, God forbid, Jesus Christ, if he's a 13, 14, 15 sack guy, now you have him at a fucking bargain. Because there's just and this is why I'm so, you know, when we were talking with Bob Rose last week about what the Saints should be looking to pick at 9. This is why I'm like so adamant on just a blue chip pass rusher, because this is what you pay. This is what gets paid to Myles Garrett. This is what gets $40 million in year 10 in the NFL.
Almost just as much as a quarterback.
This is what gets $40 million at 30 years old. If you get to the fucking quarterback, you're ending a drive. You get someone into fucking second or third and long, and the drive is pretty much statistically over at that point, right? Like that ends drives, that changes, that flips the field, that changes possession right there. And it's just it's such a premium. Like if he can just be, if we get the same Chase Young that we got last year, I'm happy with the deal. If he's even slightly better, it's an awesome deal. And if he's like what I think his ceiling could be, and what the Saints clearly think his ceiling could be, well, now you got a real fucking, now you might have the best signing of 2025 free agency at that point.
Well, like I said, number one, he wanted to be here. Number two, and number two correlates with number one. He was going to be a $9 million dead cap hit, regardless if he was going to be on the team or not.
So you might as well at that point.
You might as well just resign him. Boom. Push the money down the road like we always do.
Kick that can down the road.
Ryan says chasing the 3-4 is going to be nasty. Gotta think he didn't get to train last year until training camp. Now he gets a full off season. Well, you kind of look at Brandon Staley, and maybe he could be the next Joey Bosa. You know what I'm saying? That like
a defensive end stand-up hybrid. And Ryan brought up Isaiah Foskey earlier. You're going to kick Isaiah Foskey to outside linebacker. They're going to do the same with Chase Young now. He's going to be a stand-up pass rusher essentially. So maybe that's what his natural position is in the NFL. Now he's a little on the heavier side to do that than most guys are, like a TJ Watt,
right?
You know, like those type of guys. But he's just such an athletic specimen. I mean, he just really is. Like he's an athletic freak, like a Jadeveon Clowney, right? You know, I mean, those guys are just fucking freaks.
You don't remember that play from this past season where he was late on getting on the field and he literally made the tackle as soon as the snap. Yep. I mean, that just speaks that how aware he is, how athletic he is, that he could just run on the field, his instincts kick in, and he's automatically got the tackle as soon as the snap hits, and he just got on the field. And Ryan's right. He gets to have a full off season now. And with a great defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, one of them guys who aren't a head coach, but they're a great defensive coordinator or coordinator. I mean, talking about a guy that is well connected with Kellen Moore as well. I mean, this coaching staff is well connected. You're seeing the guys they sign. I think you're seeing some buy-in here. And what we saw out of the Saints free agency, and we're going to get into some more players, but I think there's, to me, they get an A. They get an A.
Agree. A. And I haven't. When's the last time we've been able to say that, man? Like this is an A. They shouldn't have been. I expected like good things, and a lot of these players that we're about to get to. I expected a lot of depth pieces, but look, I mean, to get Chase Young back, what they got him at, I think you'll hear some blowback from Saints Twitter and Saints fans like this is an overpay and this. Yes, if you're looking at final total sack numbers, then A, you don't know ball it, and B, sure, I can't argue with you at that point. But Chase Young was a plus player last year. And if he reaches his potential, this has a real chance to not just be a good signing, but
was he not one of the best defensive players for the Saints last season?
Well, yes.
I'm not going to say he was the best.
Not the highest. That's not the highest of bars. But yes, he was. He was.
Exactly. Why not bring him back? It's not like he had a negative season.
It's just like Derek Carr at $37 million a year. Like, this is what you pay for a middle of the pack quarterback. This is what you pay for a middle of the pack. This is what you pay for a physical freak pass rusher. It just is, man. This is what they get. It's fucking edge rusher, offensive tackle, and quarterback that gets like really paid in the NFL. And I guess now wide receiver too. But like, you want to be really paid for like maybe not the highest tier of production, be one of those three positions. Defend or guard the edge, or have the ball in your hands every play. There you go. You'll get paid in the NFL.
And just want to remind you folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, share.
Hey, call in. Let us know what your opinions are of Saints free agency.
Phone lines are open.
Phone numbers down there, 225-998-0573. Call in. Tell us how you feel. Maybe you're not as high as Sean and I are, and we'd love to hear your side of it. But I agree, Sean. I think it's an A. And this is the first time in a long time where like we got some like blue chip players in free agency. Like, you know, maybe not production wise, but like Chase Young was like, right. Wasn't he the first overall pick, first or second, right? Was he the first overall pick of a draft?
Believe he was first overall, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but
that's a blue chip guy. That's a dominant college player. Justin Reed, that's a top 5 player in his position. That's a do-it-all safety. That's a blue chip player. We don't get these guys. They either have to be in-house and re-signed as like we have to have some kind of rights to them or some kind of like offer that they can't refuse. But like to get Chase Young at that number and to get Justin Reed at the number that we got him at, I mean, thank you, Justin Reed's family, for wanting to play for the Saints. I mean, God bless you. Because otherwise he might not be here. Seriously, I mean, New Orleans doesn't get these level of free agents. It just doesn't happen.
Shout out to Justin Reed from the 225. That's my area right there from Prairieville, Ascension Parish there. Right outside of Baton Rouge. I believe he went to Dutchtown High School, if I'm not mistaken, which is known for putting out all-mass safeties. For one, Justin Reed, and I believe they had a bunch of others that came out of that high school. Talking about Louisiana high school football talent and what they have to offer, and the fact that they're still doing it on a high level in the Professional National Football League, from high school to National Football League, speaks volume of how Louisiana football talent is. And we talk about Justin Reed, perfect segue. Justin Reed is huge, man. And it's what we need at the safety position. And honestly, he automatically becomes our best player defensively. You get the best defensive player on your team in this free agency, and that's why the Saints get an A in free agency.
Agreed. That's an A. Saints get an A grade. There's really no other way to spin it. I mean, a lot of people now let's segue in a guy like bringing Juwan Johnson back. I mean, you know, he gets about 3 for 30, something like that, like $10 million a year. And I mean, a converted wide receiver who's turned into a pretty good. Look, he's a starting caliber tight end, and he's a guy that's familiar with the team. He's been here for years. I'm cool with bringing Juwan Johnson back on that deal. If he gets, if he stays healthy and gets to 700, 800 receiving yards, 6, 7 touchdowns, cool. Like that's at that point he's worth it. Again, he's a guy that's got to stay healthy, because he's been nicked up here and there because he's not. Again, he came in as a wide receiver, so a lot of times when you make a transition like that, especially at the professional level, you don't necessarily have like a body that'll withstand the kind of punishment that tight ends take on a play-to-play basis. So if he can stay healthy, look, I think he's in at least a top. He's probably a top 10 tight end. I'm not gonna lie. I'll say it. I think he's a top 10 tight end. I really do.
Well, it's just like Chase Young. He was going to be on the books regardless he was going to be on the roster or not. I think he had like a $6 million dead cap hit. So you might as well re-sign him. He was another guy that wanted to come back. And you look at Kellen Moore and what he does with tight ends, which he signed one of his own guys from Philly, Jack Stoll.
So, yeah.
You pair him up with Juwan. Juwan's your receiver tight end. You got Jack Stoll, who is literally the Jack
excellent run blocker. This guy is a run blocker. This is what the Saints are going to want to do, kind of like they did under Clint Kubiak. The Saints are going to be focused on running the football this year. Make no mistake about it. Once they like they were last year.
You look at some tape with Jack Stoll, and that dude was a bully. Yeah. I mean, straight up bully. He'll probably play the H-back position. I doubt we'll have a fullback. He'll probably play fullback a little bit.
Still haven't brought back Prentice. Yeah, this is. Yeah, I'm not even sure if we have it on the roster right now, to be honest with you. But
no, I mean, why? Because when you can have, for example, another David Thomas, like back in the day, who played that H-back, Josh Hill. Josh Hill, which Josh Hill, in my opinion, was more talented than David Thomas.
Both of those guys. Well, and both of those guys are better receivers than Jack Stoll probably is. But like you're saying, have a tight end back there in the backfield, and even that's the thing that if and when he comes back healthy, Taysom Hill can fill that role as well.
And I'm not ready to say Juwan, and Ryan agrees with you here, Nick. I'm not ready to say Juwan's a top 10 tight end because to me, I think he kind of, he was a little lackluster.
I think he can be. Even if you don't think he is, whether that be because
he can
outside of this season, he hasn't always been the healthiest, or his overall production numbers haven't been worthy.
To me, he gave up last year.
If I think that he has at least if he's not already, he at least has the potential to be a top 10 receiving tight end.
And you know what? He was starting to become a top 10 receiving threat when we had Jameis Winston, who targeted the tight end, and he was a big time red zone threat. And honestly, that's all he has to be. Just be a red zone threat. Catch those tough passes. Catch those, them jump balls, or them underneath passes over the middle in the red zone. Like Juwan Johnson, if he wants to be a top tight end, he's got to make them tough catches that maybe a Taysom Hill would make, which, he's still on the roster for the moment, but we all know he's probably going to be the post-June 1 cut. You know what I'm saying?
Juwan Johnson shies away from catches in traffic and
exactly.
and just overall physicality. And like I said earlier, that's what happens when you're a wider. When you make that position change at the professional level, it's so hard. It's so hard to do in general, having played wide receiver your entire life and then going to tight end, even when you get to college at the collegiate level. But to do it in the pros, like when you haven't been that ever before, it's not an easy thing to do. And that's that level of physicality is kind of when he still kind of has that wide receiver tweener, like wide receiver tight end body, it's not going to hold up physically all the time.
And the Saints also bring in two familiar faces in Isaac Yiadom and Will Clapp. Will Clapp Honestly, might have a chance to start at the left guard position. I don't know. I think he went to the Chargers after his stop with the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure if he started any or not. I would have to look it up. But, Will Clapp was always that, eligible wide receiver, come in as the fifth blocker, and then the dome would play, make it clap. You know what I'm saying? and Isaac Yodom, which, when Marshawn was down or Debo was down, he was that outside guy, which tells me they're going to keep Taylor in the slot.
Alontae Taylor in the slot, which is there's been enough tape to know this is where he's in. My thoughts on Alontae Taylor, just to transition quickly, like this is a guy that could be like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson level of player, who was another guy we can add to the long list of guys I hated to see go. But Alontae Taylor in the slot is where he belongs. And look, Isaac Yiadom and Will Clapp, those are depth pieces that if and when they have to be on the field, you don't feel, especially with Yiadom's proven NFL player. Like Will Clapp, even if he has to take some snaps at center, and like you said, left guard, I wouldn't love to see him start at left guard, but okay, if he has to, sure. But they're if nothing else, they're depth pieces that you feel really great about, and I love them as backups on this roster.
And Ryan is right; he went to the Bills, but it says here, Clapp left the Saints to sign with the Chargers. Most recently spent last season with the Bills, where he played one game. He started 11 games for the Chargers in 2023.
Okay,
so he has starting experience now, and I know he started a few games for us.
Right.
So he might be a candidate to start at that left guard position, Yep,
and if it comes down to that, we can address it then. But you get a guy as a backup who has starting experience, and just like you get a coordinator who has head coaching experience, and a guy like Brandon Staley, that's the stuff I look for. I love that. Isaac Yiadom has started games in the NFL. These are all great things to add as depth pieces on your roster.
And I think that covers all the guys we re-signed or signed. And so I think we can get into maybe some of the available free agents right now that's still in the market.
Well,
we missed out on Mekhi. Go ahead.
I have a couple more that I don't think we covered. Nathan Shepard.
Yep. Right. He was another dead cap guy. We just went ahead and re-signed.
You might as well bring him back. Exactly. And obviously, Godchild's the guy that's going to be out there as a run stopper. But again, that's a guy that's been in the building. He has a dead cap number anyway. You might as well bring him back. Great. Fine. And then Nephi Sewell, I believe they brought back. I could be wrong. Did they? Okay.
Which, is a big-time special teamer. And
sure.
he might have a chance to be on the field.
Preseason darling, right? I mean, that's
right.
It's a guy who's looked great in the preseason. So
absolutely. Depth pieces. And you want them guys. Depth pieces moving forward, because at some point they're going to have to step on the field.
Especially with this older roster that's been hurt the last 3 or 4 years. And then I think just to wrap up our free agency talk, I think you were going to bring up a list of guys that are still available, but I just want to highlight, a guy that, man, would really not only solve a position of need, but really allow us to open up options drafting at the number 9 pick. If they can somehow get Asante Samuel, who has connections with Brandon Staley with the Chargers, God damn, would that just do so much for this team. If they can get him, listen, they sign Asante Samuel, I'll get naked on this show. All right. I'll right here on Off the Dome. Butt ass naked.
If they get Asante Samuel, you may be looking at one of the best secondaries in football.
Oh, come on. Oh.
Man. I mean,
a 25-year-old, just really getting ready to enter his prime, who was awesome the last 2 years. Just, oh man, if they can get a guy like that, that would solve so much. Because then you can really focus on, outside edge defender across from Chase Young, or maybe you take one of these receivers that we're going to talk about coming up here.
Yes, wide receivers. It's a good little draft class for wide receivers this year. Now, I will say it's nothing it's nothing like legendary in my opinion, but they're pretty solid. A lot of
Solid.
these guys, besides
Yeah.
maybe Macmillan, a lot of these guys would make great number twos.
Yes.
And besides Macmillan and obviously Travis Hunter, if and which it's been reported today, he will play both sides of the ball, and that's what he wants to do.
Really?
Um,
Yeah.
yes, to
That's
me,
interesting.
I think he's going to play more defense than he will offense. And if he does play offense, he's probably going to play a lot of gadget plays like you see with Taysom Hill, and maybe not running the ball, but you get what I'm saying, right? So,
Sure.
you look at Ted Macmillan, and I watched his tape last night, and it was very impressive.
Agreed.
You talking about a tall, lengthy wide receiver, 6'4", 219, ran a 450 40-yard dash. I mean, you're looking at the closest thing of a Michael Thomas reincarnated here, in my opinion. Just the fact that he can get open with his physicality, his hands, his footwork. He's so smooth, dude. He's the best route runner in this draft as well. And he doesn't need speed to the blow, and he has speed. That's the thing. I know he's got a 450 40-yard time, but look at his size, 6'4", 219. And like, he's the most patient route runner I've ever seen coming out of the college game. The fact that when he does go on the outside, because he spent a lot of time in college playing that slot like Michael Thomas would, slant, or maybe a comeback route, or maybe a curl, or whatever, or underneath, or when you're going over the middle, whatever. But when you saw him on the outside, the fact that he could start and then start off slow, be patient, wait for the quarterback to go to his progressions, and just take off and have that separation with his hands, footwork, and then the fact that he could just high point it is very Larry Fitzgerald. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's impressive, and I think you have to consider him at the 9th overall pick, because you're gonna need a wide receiver.
At some
You
point in the
might
draft.
you need a wide receiver that could possibly be the number one wide receiver, where Olave, doesn't have the pressure and will eventually probably get concussed again. Maybe have Olave on limited targets, in my opinion, until maybe take some heat off, because if you add Macmillan to the bunch of Rashid and Olave, I could tell you now they're going to be running open. They're going to be running open with their speed. Shaheed as a burner, Olave who can pretty much do everything, Macmillan, in the slot. I mean, Derek Carr would be set up to have a top 10 season if you were to draft Macmillan. And it all depends on offensive line success, and it all depends on how you're going to do rushing the ball, which is going to set up the pass. But if you look at Kellen Moore, what he had in Philly, he had A.J. Brown. And I know he had a lot of other guys that were key contributors, like Jahad Dotson, Devontae Smith. Olave can be Devontae Smith. Rashid Shaheed can be Jahad Johnson. Macmillan might be your A.J. Brown.
Yeah, like you said, McMillan, 6'4", 219. I mean, the size is it's a prototypical like number one. It's what you want at the position. It's Colston was probably a little heavier than that, but it's very Marcus Colston type number one size, and a number one to me, he's like right in between like a Mike Evans and a Drake London.
Yep.
Is what I think of McMillan. Some notes I have here on him. Comes back to the ball extremely well, uses every bit of his size to shield off defenders, puts foot in the ground well to change direction for his size. A dig route assassin, which you're talking about 15, 20 yards and in, catches the ball in the middle of the field and will turn For a guy 6'4", the way he turns and kind of catches a flat foot defender and, his yards after the catch for his size is just elite. Willingness to play between the numbers. Would get naked if Saints selected him at 9. And
go ahead.
Easily a top 10 grade. If he gets picked in the top 10 in this draft, completely worth it. I mean, I would not be shocked. I would not be like, wow, I wouldn't have taken a receiver in the top 10 of this draft. He is, aside from Hunter, who is kind of like this do-it-all guy, right? Like you said, he's going to play both sides of the ball. So we'll take Travis Hunter out of this conversation, obviously. But Hunter aside is the only other wide receiver that I would say like bona fide top 10.
For sure.
Or even maybe first round for that matter. But this is a guy that no matter where you take him, you're getting a day one absolute fucking stud here.
Yeah, I need him. Yeah, I mean, you described the run after catch ability, and
for a guy his size, it's like
elite.
It's just,
and that's why I say really Michael Thomas, because Michael Thomas, for how much shit people gave him for being a slant boy, he was actually an elite run after a catch. He actually led the NFL amongst wide receivers in run after a catch when he was at the height of his peak. You know what I'm saying?
That, no doubt. Yes.
And I'm obviously I'm sad it didn't work out, but you have a chance to maybe relive that. And honestly, it would be great to draft somebody like McMillan to rub it in somebody's face, like a Michael Thomas who talked that shit about the Saints. And I can understand his beef was with Dennis Allen, but you're talking about a guy that's long past his prime, and he's probably never going to be on an NFL team again. So you get McMillan. I mean, you can relive them Gorley days. Now, obviously, you don't got Drew Brees at quarterback, but Derek Carr, with these weapons, and you could possibly provide a solid rushing attack, which I believe we were top 15 last year in rushing offense, which was a little bit of a surprise for me.
We listen, through the first 2 weeks, nobody ran the ball better than New Orleans Saints. You know what I mean? Before all the injuries, we ran it down people's throats.
Right.
The Saints are going to run the football again, and make no mistake about that.
Tim Dunn, what up? Going to need a big
catch radius for Carr, and McMillan gives you exactly that. He is what you create in the fucking lab for your wide receiver one. He's just everything about him, and then some. Honestly, you don't even think a guy that big should be able to run after the catch like that, and it's really what pops off screen when you watch tape on him.
Jerry says, Tim. And what you said that McMillan is pretty much the only wide receiver that you would draft in the first round. And I would have to sort of agree on that, because if anything, the rest of these prospects, like a Matthew Golden, which we're fixing to get into right now, they're like fringe first round picks. And Matthew Golden, I watched him last night. Ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. He got some heat from the combine. You're talking about a guy who transferred from the University of Houston to Texas last year, and he kind of replaced Xavier Worthy in that offense. And Matthew Golden, the difference between him and Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden kind of did a little bit of everything. So he lined up everywhere. He was making catches, like contested catches as a 5'11" wide receiver, and I'm not gonna lie, he was pretty solid. I liked what I saw, but Matthew Golden, to me, he's a great guy to complement your wide receiver one or even your wide receiver two, just like Xavier Worthy does for the Chiefs. Like Xavier, and I will say this, I would put Xavier Worthy over Matthew Golden, because what Xavier Worthy, you saw it, what he just did in the playoffs, and I believe he performed pretty damn well in the Super Bowl, is just his elite speed, in-game speed, the way he can just burn people off the line, just like Tyreek Hill was for the Kansas City Chiefs. Matthew Golden is no slouch when it comes to speed, but I haven't seen that instant burner speed, in-game speed versus a cornerback in his face. And that's why I think Matthew Golden is a perfect guy to be complimenting your wide receiver 1 or even your wide receiver 2. And to me, I have a second to third round grade on him. And he can also do kick returns, which he was one of the best in college football last season. And, he's kind of a Mr. Do It All. And that's what you want out of your offense. But I don't think he should be a first round pick like the steam he's gaining. I think he's one of them guys that perform elite at the combine. You're starting to see some steam, and I think it's warranted because that's why you have the combine. That's why players train so extensive to it, because it can get you paid. It can get you paid.
And we're going to talk about our sleepers here at the end of this, and my sleeper is a combine warrior. So no question. But as far as Matthew Golden, my notes on him, like you brought up, better 40 speed than in-game speed, but still excellent overall. Has a knack for making big plays at his size. Excellent body control on catches. Somewhere between a Khalil Shakir and a Brandon Cooks. Willingness to play inside the numbers, which is always going to be big for me. And I have a second round grade on him. You know what I mean? I think like you said, he's a guy that can be on the field for you day one, but you're probably reaching if you go first round on him, especially given his size. I want a big bodied, a bigger body than his stature. That's the kind of guy I want, that you spend a first round pick on. Matthew Golden, good player, just more of him, more players of his ilk.
Yeah, I mean, technically, we already got a Matthew Golden on the roster, and truthfully, he's obviously better than Chris Olave. More talented now.
Oh, you think? Wait, whoa! Back up. What? Say that again.
I said we already got a Matthew Golden on the roster, and his name is Chris Olave, and he's more talented.
Got it. Thank you. There we go.
If he's not concussed. He's not concussed.
I got you.
Which you're right. If we're gonna get a wide receiver, it's gonna be a big body guy.
That number one prototype. Yep. Gotta be.
And we get to the next guy, Luther Burden out of Missouri, which if he was the come out last year, he would have been a top 10, top 20 pick as advertised. Watching his tape, this most recent year of tape on him, it was kind of disgusting to watch because I don't know what Missouri was thinking on using him. Because he was making plays, dude. He was just making flat out plays every time he touched the ball. But the fact that they're running jet sweeps probably 20 fucking times a game, and using him as a running back. And I get that's the new trend with some of these wide receivers, but the fact that he had 1,200, 1,300 yards, over 1,000 yards receiving the year before, and you're going to use him on jet sweeps and running the ball, and now you're reducing to only 600 yards this past year, and it was just a waste of talent. And I know Luther went through a injury that also kind of set him just a tad bit back, but you look at JSN, it's kind of a similar situation. His sophomore year, he was elite at Ohio State, and then you went to your junior year, he kind of just fell just a tad bit under what he did the year before. And I feel like Luther Burden, I could tell you right now, if Luther Burden wasn't playing for Missouri and he was playing for Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, or any of these big time schools that produces wide receivers, he would be the number 2 wide receiver off this board, and he would be a top 20 pick right now if he didn't play for Missouri. The talent is there, big time playmaker, and he's one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. He's not the favorite for me, but just because there's some underlining issues for him. He's kind of in that same mode as and I'm not talking about play style or anything. I'm just talking about just the attitude, kind of the same mode as a George Pickens, gets a lot of penalties and all this type of stuff. And this is at some point you do got to be more professional. And don't get me wrong, I love the energy he provides, but when you're costing your team 10 to 20-yard penalties, setting you back, had a touchdown called back because of a unnecessary celebration and stuff of that nature. And I'm not even talking about the celebration. You literally seen him throwing balls at guys, and I love that. But I love the competitiveness. I love the anger because that's what football needs these days. And we need to go back to the old time. But sometimes when you're in a game, a big time game, it's a close game, you can't have those penalties to cost you. It becomes boneheaded. That's something that he needs to work on himself. Can he control, his competitiveness and his fire he has against his competition when it's down to the wire and perform at an elite level like he did the year before? And he might be one of the biggest drops in this draft. And I'm calling it here right now. I don't think he goes first. I don't think he goes second.
Whoa.
He might be one of these guys for some odd reason. I don't know why. I just have this feeling. Here, hold on. I got you.
God dang.
For some reason, I think he's going to be one of these guys that are going to drop to the 4th or 5th round. And he's going to be a steal, dude. He's going to be a steal. I'm telling you.
5th round? I think you're crazy, but you're right. He would be a fucking unbelievable steal at that point.
Well, it's just look at the drop off he had, and to me, probably 20% of that drop off was his fault. The rest was Missouri being a fucking jackass, and I don't know whatever the head coach there's name. I can't pronounce his name. It's some weird ass name. But
we try and limit you in pronunciations. Yes,
it's just like it was so much of a drop off, and I think teams see it as a red flag without taking that deep dive and looking at game by game and looking at play by play. This guy was still a playmaker at 600 yards this year in receiving. He was still a playmaker. He also, just like Matthew Golden, is a beast in the return game as well. So, like, if he doesn't work as a wide receiver, he could at least be one of the better return men in the NFL. He's just got that elite playmaking ability, that run after catch. He can make you miss. He's got that in-game speed. He ran a 4.41, which is nothing to joke about. People in this draft class has ran faster, but it's that in-game speed to make your defender miss, and that's most important, right?
So my notes on him, look, he's 6 foot 206. I mean, that's adequate size. That's number one receiver size. Maybe not the 6'4" that McMillan is, but that's still, AJ Brown's a little heavier, but that's like, it almost looks like an AJ Brown out there. Look, I think he has elite size and acceleration. I would say he's the best overall athlete of the three that we've talked about so far. Catches away from his body, which I'm always big on. I don't like guys that, the ball hits their chest and back. I want the ball caught right out here. Could benefit from additional weight. Like I said, if he gets to like that AJ Brown level of size and physicality, I think that could really, because he's already got elite speed. If you lose even a little bit of that for additional muscle or weight gain, I think he would benefit from that. I do have a 1st round grade on him, Sean, and I'm usually the guy that's like, no. Like if we go back to our quarterback episode, I'm the one that dropped these quarterbacks down like lower than everyone had him. So I'm surprised to hear you. I'm surprised to hear you say 4th, 5th round on a guy that I have 1st round grade on, albeit at the end of the 1st round, but still in the top 32.
I think his talent is a 1st round grade. Don't get me wrong here.
There's no question.
I just think realistically, I think he's going to be one of them shockers of the draft who's going to fall because of that down season. Wow. And that's what I was getting from. Truthfully, he's my 3rd favorite wide receiver in this draft. It goes McMillan, my sleeper, which we'll get into, and then Luther Burton. You look at some comparisons here. we both said McMillan's comparable to Drake London. You said Mike Evans. I said Mike Thomas. You look at Matthew Golden, I think he's more of like a Save Flowers, kind of that guy that can kind of do it all. If you want to run a jet sweep, if you want to run a quick wide receiver screen off of RPO, he's your guy. Or he can even make them contested catches if you want. Luther Burton, in my opinion, to me, he's every bit of what Jameis Williams is, except the speed. Jameis Winston's way faster because Jameis Williams has a god-like speed here, and Luther Burton is fast, but he's not as fast as Williams. But the type of playmaker that Williams is the same exact a playmaker that I think Luther Burton is.
Sure. No, but and again, I'd see him going in the first round. I really do.
And if he does, good for him, man, because having that drop off of a season, man, I know that's got to be a vibe killer. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to Mick Swagger for joining us. Thank you, Jerry, for doing some recruiting for us.
Appreciate anyone that shares, likes, comments. Guys, call in. Trust me, we took a call last week. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions.
Ryan with the sarcasm here, dropping to the 5th round like Spencer Rattler going to be the next big thing. Welcome, Mick Swagger, Ryan. But so that was the top 3 wide receivers. Now you can get into like a Emeka Egbuka, which is a guy that, in my opinion, is a poor man's JSN. Kind of played the same role as JSN did with Ohio State. Wasn't a number 1. Was the number 2. Was able to play in the slot, was able to play outside, made some big plays. And honestly, he's probably one of the more consistent wide receivers in this draft because you consistently saw him make tough catches. And he's a person who had a good combine, ran a 4.30 at 6'1", 202. And he's also another guy that was gaining steam. But let's get into our sleepers here. And I don't know who you want to go first or you want me to go first.
You go ahead.
So my guy, another Louisiana boy here out of Lafayette, Louisiana, should have been an LSU Tiger. I don't know why he went to that fake ass Ole Miss Rebels, but you're talking about Trey Harris here, 6'2", 205. I mean, man, this guy. He outside of McMillan, he ran a 4.54. So I don't think he's going to get in the first round with that speed. What he ran, but what he showed on tape didn't show that he was that slow, or based off of 40 time. He had great in-game speed.
Some guys have better. Some guys are better on the field, better in-game speed. That's absolutely a thing. Trey
Harris is a guy that outside of McMillan, I thought was a true number 1 wide receiver. Because that's what he was at Ole Miss. And he was obviously Jackson Dart's go-to target. Jackson Dart. It's probably going to be a top 10 quarterback. He might even sneak into the top 5, Nick. I'm telling you, Jackson Dart. He made a lot of plays for Jackson Dart that made him look good. A lot of run after catch. I seen this dude either bully corners and secondaries or literally just straight up burn them off the line, dude. Like, he could do it all. He could burn you off the line. He could bully you with his physicality. And, a guy like Trey Harris, to me, it's like he's a smaller A.J. Brown. He's a smaller A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown is a little bigger. And you're drafting that Ole Miss mold, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. You're following that Ole Miss tradition at wide receiver now, which Ole Miss is starting to sneak up on the wide receiver Maybe they're top 5 now. LSU's number 1. But you look at I had to sneak that in there. I'm sorry.
Throw that in there.
I had to sneak that in there.
No doubt. Yeah.
But you're talking about guy, if you go back to his Kentucky tape, Kentucky was a top 20 pass defense this past season in college football.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost the game, but he was the main reason that Ole Miss even had a shot to win it at the end. And I believe like Jackson Dart either fumbled the ball or threw an interception the last few seconds of the game to lose. And Kentucky came away with the upset win. But you're talking about a guy that was just dominant, trying to pull up his stats right now. He had a little over 1,000 yards on 60 receptions, 17.2 per catch, 7 touchdowns, and that's off of injury season. He didn't play the full season.
Sure.
The year before that, he had 54 receptions, 985 yards, 18.2 per catch, 8 touchdowns. So you're talking about, in a year before that, at Louisiana Tech. So he didn't start off at Ole Miss.
Right.
He went to Louisiana Tech first. 65 receptions, 935 yards, 14.4 yards per catch, 10 touchdowns. I mean,
what was that, a freshman?
That was when he was a sophomore.
Okay.
Sophomore red shirt. You're talking about a guy that has over almost like 30 touchdowns in his college career between 2 different schools. So you're talking about a guy that's has a nose for the end zone. You're talking about a guy who is a big play threat every time you throw it in the air. You're talking about a guy who can make plays happen under duress and under heavy coverage. He can do what McMillan does, just not as technique wise,
sure.
But he can out physical and high point a ball just like McMillan can. And to me, he's the closest thing to a wide receiver 1 in this draft outside of McMillan. And that's why he's my sleeper, because I don't think he's going to get in the first. I think he's going to be early second, late second. And truthfully, the Saints can bypass McMillan. If he's there, if there's somebody better, maybe a blue chip pass rusher like we talk about, or, somebody, Will Johnson or whatever, you can go that route and get Trey Harris in the second round, and Trey Harris might be just as good as McMillan in the pros. And you look at a guy who could be that number 1 wide receiver for the Saints. And then Olave can do what he can do best. Shaheed can do what he can do best without carrying the receiving core on their backs and constantly getting hurt. That's the thing. We need more depth at wide receiver. And you don't have to go McMillan at 9th overall to get that wide receiver 1. And that's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, if you can get a guy like that late in the second, or Christ, God forbid, in the third round, absolutely.
AJ Brown went in the second round.
Sure. Yeah. And like we said, like you brought up multiple times before tonight, Michael Thomas, also second round pick.
Exactly.
My sleeper wide receiver of the 2025 NFL draft, Jalen Noel from Iowa State. 5'10", 194. This is a combine warrior. This is like in an era, in a day and age where a lot of guys don't do all the drills. A lot of guys don't do any drills, right? They don't want to lower their draft stock, right? And I get that. And that's their prerogative to do so. If you're going to be a top 10 pick, why would you do anything? Maybe you wake up and you're not as well rested as normal. Why would you do anything to hurt your draft stock? I get it. So I'm not disparaging anyone that chooses not to do said drill or drills, plural, at the combine. But what I love is a guy that does all of them, every goddamn drill. And not just does every goddamn drill, but has a top 5 finish in every fucking category. Jalen Noel, combine warrior. I think he is. So I said, where did I have? Hang on a second. best athlete of the three of that we talked about earlier for Luther Burden, right? I think Jalen Noel is the best athlete overall at the wide receiver position in this draft. We're talking about, so let's just say, and he has return experience. Okay, this is a guy that can be where he could get drafted, and with the experience that he had in college, you wouldn't mind having him out there maybe as a rookie or as an early year career, as a guy early in his career being a returner. But 4.39 in the 40-yard dash, 1.51 in the 10-yard split. That's tied for third. 41.5-inch vertical, tied for first. 11.2 broad jump, tied first. Or I'm sorry, maybe that was first. 6.82 seconds in the 3-cone drill, tied fifth. 4.17 seconds in the 20-yard shuttle, fifth. 23 reps on the bench, bro. First. Like, for a wide receiver, 5'10", 194. And when you see him on film, the first thing that, like, jumps out to you is how stout he is, how thick he is. Like, this dude is an absolute just workout freak. Like, this is the best overall athlete. This is he's not not in the same way that, like, a guy, like we said earlier in the podcast tonight, like not in the same way that Chase Young is a specimen, right? Or like a Jadeveon Clowney, like a Chase Young is a specimen, but he's his own type of specimen. You don't see a lot of guys at his height and weight be able to do everything that he, like, just to be top 5 in every category in the combine. Like, that's impressive. And this is a guy that I have a second round grade on, and I don't see him going in the second round. I'll be shocked. I think he's like late third, maybe fourth. But if you took him in the second, I think you're getting a real contributor out of the gate in Jalen Noel.
Absolutely. And you look at some of these hyped up slot guys, because Jalen Noel, he's a slot guy, but he's a different type of slot. He's a different type of slot.
He is.
He's a vertical slot. Slot. And you look at these other slot guys that are getting some big time hype, and I don't know why, like a Jack Bech, formerly with LSU, but spent time at TCU, or Xavier Resposado out of Miami. Those two guys are getting the biggest hype and being that Lad McConkey type like player. I don't see it. And the fact that you brought up Jalen Noel, I think you brought up a very underrated prospect, because to be fair, he has one fault, and that's a 7.2% career drop rate, which has rose some concerns. But the fact that it says
remember,
right here,
Ja'Marr Chase couldn't catch a pro-sized football in his first preseason too. Everyone freaked out about that, and now he's the highest paid player in the NFL. So,
well, hear me out, because just because he has that high of a drop rate doesn't mean he drops a lot of passes. To me, that just tells me he has a lot of targets. You know what I'm saying? A guy with a lot of targets, because you look at it right here. I just read it. He's second all time in receiving yards in Iowa State history. And you're talking about a guy that he has a teammate from Iowa State that is ranked above him in some of these wide receiver draft class standings, in Jaden Higgins, who is 6'4" and is kind of more of a Alan Lazard type, who's also from Iowa State. So I thought you brought up a great sleeper, and it does show that he's projected to go in the 4th round, says likely 4th. But yeah, I like
late third, 4th round is where he'll probably go. But you take him in the second, you're getting a guy that's you're going to get contribution out of him day one.
And I like this note right here. It says Noel has a dangerous weapon written all over him as a vertical slot wide receiver with deep ball tracking ability that jumps off film. The way he stresses defenses downfield with his modest frame, like you brought up, this isn't your typical underneath the slot guy like you would see out of Jack Bech and Xavier Resposado.
Yep.
And you're talking about Xavier Resposado, who is the all-time leading receiver for the Miami Hurricanes, and you're talking about all the great wide receivers they had.
Yep. Definitely.
I think you got somebody that might be better here, like you just mentioned. Like just because he had all that success at Miami and there's a lot of great names in Miami history, especially receiving, Michael Irvin comes to mind and so on. But these are the type of guys, if you nail in the 4th, 5th, 3rd round, that's what it's all about. This is how you can set your core up for the future. The Saints make these type of signings and these re-signings in free agency in hopes to land somebody in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, even 6th. Hell, even the 7th round to be major contributors or somehow magically land the next group of core guys like we did in 2017. So the Saints are going to be huge on draft combine guys. And I'm glad you brought that up because
we talk about and what's the thing that what have the Saints hammered home over the years? Relative athletic score.
Exactly, dude.
If you're a high raz, you are a target. You are on the Saints board. You know what I mean? And this is a guy that just like checks all the boxes. I mean, I can't stress how just top 5 in each of these categories, like, and 23 reps on the bench for a wide receiver. Come on, man. Come on.
Rip the booth. Jerry the GG. Man, Jerry's doing some recruiting out here, man. Shout out to Jerry.
We appreciate all the follows. We appreciate all the likes. Guys, call in. I mean, it's probably too late tonight, but man, don't be afraid to call in. We'd love to hear your opinion on free agency, on who you think the Saints should be drafting at 9 or later in the draft or, 40, whatever. And we would love to hear the feedback on any of these draft guys that we talk about at these positions. We've already gone through quarterback, running back, wide receiver, maybe off the Sean. Maybe, tight ends next. I don't know what we're going to do next, Sean. You got to let me know, but
tight ends.
Sure. And we would love any and all feedback. And if that's live or post show, however it may be, we appreciate it all.
And right now, what we're doing is we're looking at players that could be possibly good fit for the Saints. We're going to take a deeper dive into the draft and we're
going to do mock drafts, right?
We're going to do mock drafts.
100%.
I'm going to find a time where I do this every year. I'm going to find a time where, because I haven't went through each position, literally looked at every single player. Like I literally just looked at top 10, top 15. Sure. I haven't looked at the full set of wide receivers or the full set of quarterbacks or whatever. So we're going to take a deep dive and we're going to be live on draft day. So, yeah, stay tuned.
That's going to be a show. That's going to be the show that y'all need to be here for. First round of the NFL draft, we'll be here. We'll be doing it live. We'll be having it on screen. We'll be reacting to every pick. We'll be waiting for the Saints at 9 and so on. So that's going to be a great show. We would love for all of you to join
us. It's draft season, man. This is the greatest time of the year. And football, man. I want to play it again. Shit, man. So, Nick, is there anything you would like to bring up? Because we pretty much covered everything. I thought we did a pretty damn good job.
No, great show. I think we covered a lot of, this again. Let's just backtrack. If you weren't here at the start of the show, Sean and I both gave the Saints an A in free agency for their grade. I know a lot of people look at some of these signings as overpays, but again, keep in mind you gotta think about potential with guys like Chase Young. He's only 25. He's still young enough to where you're. Again, and he's the first overall pick in the draft, right? We're talking about pedigree. When you're that kind of name and you still have so many years left to reach that potential, that's just what you're going to pay. And if he hits, even if he even remotely hits, if he's a double-digit sack guy, that's a phenomenal fucking contract at that point. It's a bargain, really. So, I look, Sean, you said A first, and I followed it up with A. I agree. Hats off to the Saints. Well done, Mickey Loomis. He's taking a lot of heat from Saints Twitter. over the recent months and weeks. And but I think he deserves his flowers on this. I think this is better than they've been way more active, and they've done way better than I thought they could have or thought they were going to. I will tell you that.
Bro, they low-key do it every year, man. He does it every year. No, I mean,
the Saints are always going to get guys. Like, again, we talked about this in weeks past, and Bob, our friend Bob Rose even talked about it last week. If you think the Saints are in salary cap hell, or you think the Saints aren't going to have money to do anything, I must ask you, this your first time here? It must be, because the Saints always find a way, man. The Saints will find a way. It might not always be the biggest of names. It might not always. I think we have few misses in free agency, but they're always going to find a way to be active participants in free agency. Don't worry about what the salary cap number is. It's all fugazi bullshit anyway. Nick is going to make it work, and he made it work here.
He sure did. And, like I like to say, Dave Chappelle used to say, fuck him. You know what I'm saying? Fuck him. But I think that's going to do it here at Off the Dome Sports. Hold on. I forgot. We can't go without saying our sponsors, right?
Go ahead. Do the sponsors.
Do the sponsors. I know it's corny. I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep doing it till we land a sponsor.
Hey, we will one day.
One day.
It's coming, man.
And hopefully it's Old Spice, Smell Like Swagger, and hopefully Taco Bell. Great tacos. I love Mexican pizzas. Like, you gotta love the Bell. Please sponsor us. But that's gonna do it here.
Yes.
Yeah. Please. Hey. You know what sponsor I really want to get sponsored by? Buc-ee's. You ever been to a Buc-ee's?
No, I don't think they have that up north here. No.
Well, you need to, next time you come out south, you got to check out a Buc-ee's. But I think that's going to do it here.
I'm gonna go to the store and give me a cold drink. When I get that cold drink, I'm gonna bust it.
And I honestly might go to the store and get me a cold drink, because I'm pretty thirsty right now.
I think I got one waiting in the other room right there. So.
Absolutely. That's going to do it here, folks. Every Sunday, either at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be here on Off the Dome Sports. We're going to be covering Saints. We're going to be covering the Pelicans when it's time to cover the Pelicans. We're going to cover the LSU Tigers when it's time to cover the LSU Tigers. But most importantly, we're going to cover the NFL draft right now.
And maybe Tulane Greenway.
Yes, absolutely. But that's going to do it here Off the Dome Sports. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Rip. Thank you, Ryan, former co-host. Thank you. But that's going to be it for us.
When I get that cold drink, I'm gonna bust it. Bitch, I'm finna go to the store and give me a cold drink. When I get that cold drink.